Hey guys, it's Mario here, coming at you with a quick video today to answer a question that came in from one of you guys related to tracking your macros. And as you guys know, I'm pretty big on the whole tracking, food journaling, building self-awareness, using apps on your smartphone or web-based apps to basically hold yourself accountable to your targets when it comes to your calorie intake as well as your macronutrient intake, at least for a period of time while you're learning what the composition of each food is. Composition meaning nutrients, what do you find in certain foods that you consume on a regular basis. So this question sent in by Darren, let me read this out to you guys real quick here. So he says, hi Mario, thanks for the video. I have a quick question that's been on my mind for quite some time now. I've been on intermittent fasting for quite some time now, and these past 8 weeks I lost around 8 kilos while still gaining some muscle. So he made really good progress. I mean, 8 kilos lost in 8 weeks, that's fantastic. That's a lot of kilos, a lot of body weight, and he says he's been gaining some muscle mass, so that is fantastic. And now moving forward, he says, I'm always tracking my calorie intake and make sure that I take around 500 calories less than my maintenance, plus working out heavy at the gym. And my question is, do I really need to track to the letter the amounts of carbohydrate, fats, and protein intake? What are the benefits of doing so? Will I lose more weight fast, gain muscle, question mark. So now, how accurately do we need to track our macros? So let's say your target protein amount for the day is 155 grams or 160 grams or 170 grams. Do you really need to be at exact 1 gram of that target? Most likely not. And here's the reason why it is probably not a good idea to even try to do that. Well, number one, you're gonna be paranoid, stressed out, and you will be rarely able to get in that even 5 gram kind of level where even the nutrition itself, the nutrition label is off by about 10%. For the most part. I mean, there's an error rate there. Another error rate, I mean, we're talking about apps that have databases and some human had to put in data inside of that database. Additionally, a lot of these apps that we're using, such as MyFitnessPal, probably have an error rate as well because a lot of users can add foods into the database. If you search for anything on MyFitnessPal, you will probably notice that there's multiple data points inside and different kind of nutrients for the same food. So it is a little bit tricky if you're looking to pinpoint exactly which one is the most accurate one. And it is kind of a game that you lose by default if you try to make this perfect. So because it can't be perfect. So do you need to accurately, by that I mean, like, do you need to target it up to a gram? No, I mean, I think that's completely unnecessary and that's a total waste of time and effort for something that doesn't make that much of a difference. The way I set up macronutrient targets for my clients, that would be give them about 10 to 20 gram range. Let's say when you're talking about carbohydrates and protein, because they have about 4 calories per gram. And when we're talking about fats, then we have a 5 to 10 gram kind of range where if you fall into that range, you're totally fine. As well as for calories, there's about 100 calorie more or less that you can kind of deviate, as well as there's an option that, let's say if you do undereat calories and today, you can kind of compensate for that tomorrow, or let's say if you're not that hungry today, you can eat a little bit less. If you're more hungry tomorrow, you can eat a little bit more, depending on how you feel day to day. So you can kind of spread out that weekly amount of calories into the calorie that you fit for yourself during the day, just for more adherence, for more consistency. Now, when we talk about macronutrients, I want to put protein on a side because protein is the most important one for us that are interested in body composition improvement. So we're interested in minimizing body fat, we're interested in maximizing muscle mass. So protein is a little bit more critical, and that's one that I would insist on you having more accurate every single day, right? So that would be the one that I would insist for every single person to really keep that protein intake consistent. As far as carbohydrates and fats, this is where personal preference, activity level is going to play, and there's not that much difference if you go higher carb, lower carb, higher fat. I mean, this is entirely up to you. However, if you look at athletes, if you look at, let's say, professional bodybuilders, if you look at elite athletes, typically it will lean more on a little bit of a moderate to high carbohydrate intake and a little bit lower to moderate fat intake because of that high intensity activity, and for that which carbohydrate is the preferred source and is the source that will enhance performance the most. So usually that is what most people fall into. It's some kind of, let's say, moderate to high carbohydrate, low to moderate fat, and about, let's say, a protein amount that is based on your lean body mass. So somewhere about 1 gram per pound of your lean body mass. So let's say you have about 170 pounds in your body weight, and you've calculated your lean body mass is about 140, so 145, something like that. You've made that calculation. Now, if you hit your protein between 140 and 150, you're good to go. In terms of your carbs, that's where you have a little bit more room to play around, and I would actually suggest to keep it more consistent for the sake of routine, because of making your life easier. If you have massive variations, unplanned variations, that can actually interfere with your adherence, because if you now have to decide every single day what's your target carbohydrate, what's your target fats, and if you're not really sure, if you have a lot of room left there, it is going to deplete your willpower, increase in decision fatigue, and you're just going to be worrying about nothing. So it is always a good idea to have a default setup in your diet, so you kind of have an idea of which foods you're going to go for. You have your default little targets, and then if there is some kind of exception, if you for one reason one day you had to go a little bit higher in fats for breakfast, you had an avocado salad or something like that, then if the fats went up, you're free to reduce the carbohydrate, and that one single day won't make any difference in the long term. And generally, when we put things into the perspective, if you look at the research, if the calories are the same, if the protein is the same, fats to carbs ratio doesn't influence body composition that much, aside from the fact, of course, that if you are doing a, let's say, an extreme low carb diet with a lot of activity, probably that activity won't be as productive, so that way you could potentially negatively influence your performance in the gym for a period of time. Maybe you will adjust after a while and kind of get back to that performance, and that might influence the end result. But other than that, as far as the fat to carb ratio, you don't have to worry about that too much, although as I said, I do recommend having a range. Now, to bring it back and to kind of summarize here, will you magically gain more muscle, lose more fat because now you're tracking? Well, not really. I mean, a lot of people can hit their targets without tracking at all. People who have a lot of experience, people who have done tracking for years and years, and now they say, oh, I'm intuitively eating. Well, you're not intuitively eating now because you had 5 years of tracking every single day. So if now you switch to intuition, that's really just a habit that you've already built up for 5 years, and now you can just maintain that routine. And over time, eventually you want to move away a little bit from tracking, potentially outside of fat loss or in a maintenance phase. You want to go more with just kind of having a ballpark figure of your calories, maybe once or twice a week you're tracking, measuring your body weight and seeing that correlation there. So if the body weight is going up, you might be overeating. If the body weight is going down, you might be in a caloric deficit. So you kind of correlate the body weight change with the intake itself to kind of give you an idea. Without tracking at all, you can kind of figure out, okay, I'm approximately where I need to be. And when we're talking about tracking in general, why are we doing tracking? Well, we're doing tracking to eliminate randomness. And randomness is kind of the enemy of making good decisions, especially when we're talking about a fat loss diet. Let me give you an example. So let's say for this specific week, you lost half a kilo, then you lost half a kilo, you lost half a kilo. Week 4 comes and you didn't lose anything that week, right? So your weight scale is flat the same. What happened there? Well, if you know your diet, if you've been tracking everything, if you have all the numbers, if you have all the data, and you know that you've been in a deficit, for that 4th week, you can assume that you were in a kind of a phase where you retained a little bit more water. Maybe some kind of food you ate, maybe your sleep was a little bit off, maybe you had a little bit more stress. Something happened that skewed the data. While if someone who isn't tracking, they won't really be able to distinguish that from something else if they don't have a ton of experience, or in general, I mean, it is kind of a basing your decision on just intuition, which is not as good as making that objective decision, especially if it's your first, second, or third cut. After a while, of course, it makes it easier, but to begin with, it's a lot easier just to have everything tracked and then make your decisions based on that. So I do generally recommend being diligent with your MyFitnessPal or whatever app you choose, just to make sure that you can make the right decisions, and so you know what you need to adjust. If you do hit that plateau, you know, okay, maybe I can cut my carbs a little bit, maybe I can reduce my fat a little bit, maybe I can add more cardio, and it just makes the whole process easier. So just a couple of thoughts on tracking your macros. You need to be 100% accurate to the gram. Not really. I mean, I would say in the, let's say outside of deliberately trying to lose as much fat as possible, you probably don't even need to track that accurately. You can be somewhere in that 30-gram range, and most likely the protein is not a big deal as well, even if you go a little bit less, a little bit more on some days, even more than 10 grams weren't enough. If we're talking about having an excess calories where your body lean body mass will be built because now there's no caloric deficit that is preventing that from happening, so there's no risk of muscle loss. So on a lean gaining or in a bulking phase, even a less of a deal, but on a cut, definitely you want to be on as protein as much as possible, on calories specifically. So I hope you enjoyed a couple of thoughts here on tracking your macros. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, anything you want to add on top of this as a question, something you want to clear up more. Aside from that, make sure that subscribe button below to support the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.